All right, today's episode of the Pressbox Podcast, episode number 5, if you're counting at home, is brought to you by our sponsor, Bonus Room Art. Head to bonusroomart.com today to buy clay art prints as well as get custom artwork, and follow them on Instagram at Bonus Room Art. In today's episode, we have a special guest. Coastal Carolina special teams assistant Josh Caraway is joining us. Josh has been a good friend of mine for a long time. We grew up together, played sports together, so we've known him for a long time. So it was a real treat to have him on today. We talked a little bit about Coastal Carolina and what they're doing as they made the move to FBS recently. Talked a little bit about recruiting, as well as Josh's path from Maryville, Tennessee, up the coaching ranks to where he is now at Coastal, and then finish up a little bit talking about the coaching profession as a whole, and finish up after that with a little bit of rapid fire and get a take on some of his favorite college stadiums he'd like to coach at. So without further ado, here is Josh Caraway. We're joined by Coastal Carolina football assistant Josh Caraway. Thank you for joining us, Josh. How are you today?
I'm doing great, guys, and I'm thrilled to be on the show today, guys.
Hey, we're glad to have you on the show. It's really great to hear your voice again, and tell us a little bit about Coastal Carolina's season this year. I know you guys had a pretty good season, but give us a little update.
This season at Coastal Carolina, it was unlike any others because we actually transitioned up to FBS ball, because previously Coastal Carolina had been competing in FCS ball and had been playing in the Big South and had been super successful in the Big South. Last year, the team went 10-2, with the only 2 losses being to Charleston Southern in South Carolina and then Jacksonville State, which is actually in Alabama. And both of those losses were by just 1 point. So the team had really gone above and beyond the last couple of years, always in contention for a Big South championship. But the whole university decided that some change was needed. And the neat thing is that the Sun Belt had approached Coastal Carolina about joining its conference. And as far as East Tennessee listeners go, the Sun Belt has Appalachia State, has Troy, has Arkansas State. So just a really up-and-coming conference, and it was kind of a no-brainer that it would work out for the whole university if we could just join the Sun Belt Conference. And so that was officially done. And as far as the 2017 season, this was the last year of our 2-year transition. So in 2016, we were, quote-unquote, in transition, still played an FCS schedule, but we were unable to be in contention for the FCS playoff. And then this year, in 2017, we went ahead and played a full FBS schedule. I believe our only FCS opponent was Western Illinois. And then at the end of the season, we just wouldn't be able to go to a bowl game because this was still a transition year. But in 2018, we'll be full out eligible to be able to go to any bowl game, depending on how the season goes. And when we joined the Sun Belt this season, we knew that there were going to be just a higher level of competition, a lot of good athletes, a lot of good coaches, a lot of good schools. And so we actually went 3-9 this year. We started off well. We played a great game against UMass. And then as we went on through the season, we definitely saw that this was not the FCS level that we were used to playing to. But the one thing that I can tell you that I'm just incredibly proud of is the hard work of not only our staff, but of our football guys. Because when the times get tough, which they do, you really have 2 options. Is that you can kind of lay down and let that be it, or you can continue to fight against that. And so week in and week out, we're really trying to, buy in and, to really set a foundation moving forward into the Sun Belt and for future Coastal Carolina teams. And the guys continue to do that. So week in and week out, continued to strive, continued to push through, and we actually ended the season on a 2-game win streak. We went out to the University of Idaho, and we got a win out there. And then we came on back to Conway, South Carolina, where we finished up the season against Georgia Southern. So we had a win there for our last 2 games. And it was just an awesome feeling that after a whole season of really grinding and really, working together, to see that kind of come to fruition there at the end, and just love to send our seniors out on a good note. So proud of them and the work that they did. So that's kind of how our season unfolded there in 2017.
Yeah, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you about and you talked about it, was the transition. So I guess my question would be, what was at first impetus for you guys to make that transition? And second of all, I guess what certain requirements or almost prerequisites does a school need to have to make that jump? Because I'm sure there's a lot of FCS teams that have either kicked around the idea or thought about it or maybe even want to, but maybe don't meet certain requirements. Just take kind of our listeners through, what it takes to make that move from SCS to the FBS.
Well, one of the biggest things that when you think about is you've got to have that fan support. You've got to have that backing. There's a lot of people involved more than just the athletic program. It's really a whole university moving forward. And at the forefront of my mind, one of the biggest things was that Coastal's football stadium didn't have the capacity to move up to FBS. So as they were talking about, all of the different options, that was one of the first things that came to the table was, well, we have to do a complete stadium renovation to make sure that could facilitate an FBS program. And prior to 2017, the only 2 FBS teams in the state of South Carolina are Clemson and South Carolina.
Right.
So, meetings, all of this finally got approved, and we started, groundbreaking on our new stadium. I believe it was April of this year.
Right.
And previously, our stadium seated about 10,000 people, around that number. To be an FBS member, I want to say that the average, you have to average a certain number of fans in attendance each game. Okay. It's 15,000. So it was kind of, I want to say it's a 2-year process where this first year for 2017, we went ahead and expanded it to 15,000 seats. And I don't know if you guys have ever been out to the surf turf here in Conway, but no. we have kind of 3 sides to our field. And what they basically did was that they made it a horseshoe. So they made it a complete enclosed horseshoe, and then they kind of built on to the home side where kind of would be a upper deck or a second level to it. And that was phase 1, and that got finished about a week before camp started. And so we were able to have that ready for our fans this season. It was a really exciting thing to be a part of, which again, that's one of the big reasons that drew me to Coastal, was that it's very exciting to come in on something on the ground level, to say that you were a part of a program for their first year, whether that be the first year of college football, first year of FBS competition. So that was wonderful to be able to see all the fans from Conway and from Myrtle Beach and, the entire Horry County community to be able to come on and support the Chants Saturday in and Saturday out. And the second part of that is that we're actually going to be working on the second level, the second phase of it during this off season, where there'll be, luxury boxes and then a second level on the visitor side as well. And so we're hoping to get that completed before the beginning of our 2018 season. So that would be a big part of the FBS transition, is having a stadium that can facilitate that number of fans. And then the other big one, as far as FBS ball, would be the scholarship aspect of it. So upon joining the FBS, we went up to 85 full scholarships, which is a huge blessing to this football team, because we're able to go out there and to get the athletes that we need, that we know will make the Chanticleer football team and Teal Nation proud here in the coming years.
Yeah, so I was going to have a next question, kind of leading into a little bit of the recruiting here. So you guys finished up your season, like you just said, and now I'm sure you guys are out on the road recruiting. My question was going to be some of the recruiting challenges that you guys, not necessarily challenges, but differences you may face. Because like you said, typically or historically in South Carolina, it was Clemson and South Carolina is the only FBS schools. But you guys, it's kind of more of a, I guess whatever you want to call it, quote unquote, mid-major. Maybe how does your approach differ a little bit from those guys, or what is basically your main focus on how you're approaching recruiting right now?
Right, and that's one of the biggest challenges, well, don't really see it as a challenge, but just see it as something that we can build upon, is that
Right.
when you talk to people in South Carolina, or I'll say the Carolinas in general, you walk up to somebody and you say, hey, are you a Clemson guy or are you a South Carolina guy? And we
Right.
kind of want to change the conversation is, no, are you a Clemson guy, a South Carolina guy, or are you a Coastal guy?
Right.
So that's really one of the biggest, I guess, perspectives that we want to change as we hit the recruiting trail, especially moving forward into 2018. But the big thing that we have to focus on are those competitive advantages that Coastal football has that, again, some other programs may not have. Our head coach, Joe Moglia, is unlike any head coach in college football, which if you ever get a chance to talk to him, the man is phenomenal. I could sit here and talk about his reputation, his resume for a long time, but I'll just say it like
Right.
this. He was the CEO of TD Ameritrade for going on 20 years. He's still the chairman of the board for TD Ameritrade. And with his 23 years in Wall Street and in the business world, he completely just changes the view of what it means to be a college football coach. So having been a coach before he got into the business world, and then having been able to come back to college football, bringing that different perspective into it, it really benefits us here at Coastal Carolina. And what we really try to focus on is our team culture. Our team mantra is a thing called BAM, which stands for Be a Man. If you ever come to the facility here in Coastal Carolina or here in Conway, you're going to see it posted everywhere. Be a man. And that's where we really try to instill upon our players, the guys that we're recruiting, is what BAM actually stands for. And there's 4 key concepts to it that we try to sell. And that's: a man stands on his own 2 feet, that he accepts responsibility for himself, that he treats others with dignity and respect, and that he accepts the consequences of his actions. That is our standard here at Coastal Carolina football. We're famous for, we don't have any rules, but we have that one standard, BAM. So when we hit the road and when we go talk to recruits, that's what we're trying to get across to them, is that if you want to come play at Coastal, you have to be a part of BAM. You have to be a part of the culture that we have set here that is really just grounded in accountability and responsibility for yourself. And the neatest thing with me being here for this past year is to really see how that culture is kind of cultivated amongst the players. And that gets represented in, I guess, the first part of the interview that I said with you guys, is that there was a time this season where, had we not taken accountability for ourselves and our actions, we could have just folded. But to see them kind of come together and look at themselves in the mirror and say, guys, this is on us, both coaches, players, the staff, everybody, that's what BAM's about, is to be able to pull yourself through that. And so that's what we really try to get across to the recruits when we go on the road and we go and talk to them. Now, the other aspects about it is that with college football, there's a new thing this year with an early signing day.
Right.
So that's affecting college football programs all across the country. And there's the early signing period on the 20th, and then there's, of course, the regular one that's in February, that later date. And so that kind of changes things a little bit, because just like all the other schools, we have to hit the roads. We have to get out to our guys, and we got to be able to go ahead and talk to them and see if they want to come visit the campus. And really, it just speeds things up a lot because, you're in the middle of the season, but you're also constantly thinking about recruiting and thinking about which guys you need to talk to. Can we get them to campus? And then at the same time, knowing that they're going to see other schools as well. So we've been talking to our guys, and we're just really excited to see what our class of 2018 is going to look like here in a few weeks.
Well, Josh, obviously to kind of play the devil's advocate a little bit, South Carolina, Clemson, I know you said, hey, you want to change the culture or the conversation to, are you a South Carolina, Clemson, or Coastal guy? But obviously, just putting the 3 letters FBS on your program is not going to necessarily make athletes want to run to Coastal Carolina right away. So what's the strategy? Because as I said, it's going to take some time for you to convince some of these athletes that Coastal is now in the big time. So what is your strategy? Is it a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan? How do you intend to go after some of these guys that maybe previously might have gone to South Carolina, Clemson, or even gone to Georgia or one of these other schools in the Southeast?
Well, our strategy, again, kind of goes back to selling what our culture is, BAM. And then, of course, all the competitive advantages that we do here have at Coastal Carolina. Our big hashtag that we use on our social media is Ball at the Beach, which offers a huge advantage to a lot of young college kids is that we're one of the few colleges in the whole, I guess, landscape of college football that's located not 10 miles from one of the more famous beaches in the nation. And so Myrtle Beach is a great place to live. It's a great place to go to school. So that's definitely a huge advantage that you've got with coming to Coastal Carolina. And then one of the things that we really try to get across to our guys is that we have this thing called LAF, which is Life After Football, which is unique to our program. Coach Moglia feels that it's very important that we prepare our guys for life after football is done because, like you guys know, like myself, you can't play football for forever. And so we try to prepare our guys for that. So during the season, every Thursday, we take 30 minutes out of the day to talk about, I guess, just life in general or life after football. It could be anything. We could have a speaker to come in and talk about financial planning. We could have a speaker come in to talk about maybe it's a former player to talk about what they did after football, or we could be talking about what you need to study as far as your major to take those steps forward with your career placement. We just really try to get across to our guys the importance of, well, why are you really here? And so that helps us out in our recruiting majorly. And one thing I do like to mention, because I'm very proud of it, is that Coastal Carolina is the only football team in the country that had its entire team go to the polls last year and vote in the presidential election.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And so that's one of the things that we really try to really voice when we're out there on the road and we're talking to these guys about coming to Coastal to play football is that playing college football is a blessing in and of itself. But some of the advantages that we have here, BAM, LAF, just the lessons that you'll learn from Coach Moglia in and of itself, we try to use those to kind of show what we're about here at Coastal. And at the end of the day, just to be able to show them that we were at FCS, but now we're at FBS. It was really neat this year getting to have the opportunity to play against the Arkansas Razorbacks and play on the SEC network. Me personally, I've been in Nebraska the past 2 years coaching ball, and so my family just thought it was wonderful that they could actually come on the TV and actually see me coach for once. And so a lot of the guys that are local, they see all of these other teams. And so that's one thing we do mention is that, we do play against Arkansas. We do play against all these FBS teams. And we actually open with South Carolina this next year. So that's going to be a really good game down in Columbia. So,
well, it sounds from what you're saying, it all sounds really good. And it sounds, though, that the real success is going to be after you get a few classes through there. In other words, once you get some of the guys that you have now and some of the guys that you're going to be recruiting this year and next year, and those guys buy into those philosophies and that culture that you're talking about, and then they leave Coastal Carolina, now you have a network where those guys can start talking to other people and say, hey, you really need to see what's going on at Coastal Carolina. So sounds like once you get some of these guys bought in and through the program, that's going to really help it take off. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yes, Ralph, that is absolutely right. One thing I do like to remind people about Coastal football is that we actually started the football program here in 2013. So the football program is only 14 years old. And to look at in what a short amount of time, what the program has already done, when you think about many other FBS teams that have been around for 50, 60, 70, even 80 or more years. So those are the guys that we're going up against. So It will take those couple of classes, and it will take some alumni that kind of get the word out. And specifically as far as playing goes, we played so many freshmen this past year. So there was a lot of, I guess, growing there, but there was a lot of learning there. And so I'm really excited after this next offseason for us to get into the weight room, to get into the film lab, to be able to continue to work bigger, faster, stronger, and to watch that film to get prepped for this next season.
Yes, and you mentioned just being around since '03. I think you already do have some notable alumni. I mean, Josh Norman comes to mind as one guy, but and I'm sure there's other guys that have either played in the NFL or moved on to professional football. What kind of either feedback or relationships do you continue to have with some of the alumni that have played pro ball, and what are their kind of impact and contributions to the program going forward to kind of help it as you guys progress in the FBS more?
Yeah, that's one of the neat things about Coastal is that if you want to go to the league, if you have the ability to go to the league, that we can certainly help you get there. Josh Norman is one of the ones that most everybody knows of.
Sure.
Played in Super Bowl 50, played for the Panthers, plays now for the Redskins, and I want to say, you got to fact check me on this, is the highest paid defensive back in NFL history.
Right.
But there are many others, whether you're talking about Mike Tolbert, who also played in Super Bowl 50 for the Panthers, anybody from Matt Hazel, Denzel Rice, Maurice Simpkins, even Tyler Thigpen. They are all Chanticleers. And so when people come in and they say, well, what if I want to go to the league? If you want to get to the league and you have the ability, we'll definitely help you do that here at Coastal Carolina. And it's just really neat to see those guys come back around. Actually, we had a guy on the team from 2016 who's in the league right now, D'Angelo Hop Henderson for the Denver Broncos. So Hop comes around every so often. He's a great guy, loves this university, as do all of our guys. And so it's always awesome to see them come back, whether it's for, games or if they're, back in town. We actually just put in our Hall of Fame room Josh Norman's plaque up there. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to help these guys succeed while they're in college, but then go on to see them do things, again, that life after football. Those guys are still playing ball, but to kind of see them reap the benefits of the football program here at Coastal Carolina.
Right. So you mentioned that again, the life after football. I kind of want to use that to kind of bring it back a little bit to more to you individually. We obviously didn't say at the start, but those who don't know, me and you have been friends for a long time. We grew up together, went to school together, played football together, and you played all 4 years. I went on to play more baseball, but just take you back to that time in high school where obviously you're playing football, and then kind of at the time you're graduating high school, you went to Freed-Hardeman's. That's correct, right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Okay, Freed-Hardeman alumni. So, and they're a school that doesn't have football. So obviously at that point you knew, okay, maybe my football playing career is done. What were you thinking at that point? Did you know that coaching was something you wanted to get into? Or did you just kind of wanted to see how things went? What was your mindset kind of leaving high school into college and as far as football and what coaching played into it?
Right. And that's the thing that I try to tell any young coach or someone that wants to get into coaching is that no two coaches have the exact same coaching path, that everybody does it their own different way. And mine is very unique in the fact that I went to a school that didn't even have a college football team.
Right.
But to really get into that story, it goes back to our playing days at Maryville High School, playing for Hall of Fame coach George Quarles. Had an incredible 4 years, went 58-1, won 3 state championships. You guys know what football is like in Maryville. It's Friday night lights. Every kid dreams of doing it. And I was the same way. I was really excited to kind of see where I could go with football. And just lessons that I had learned from Coach Quarles really kind of help instill in me what it means to be a coach, to really instill discipline, to instill class, to instill respect, and to act like you've been there for like before. So that was super important to me growing up and playing for him. But I knew that I wanted to be a teacher and a coach at a very young age. My whole family are basically teachers. My grandmother was a teacher. My sister is an elementary school teacher in Nashville. My dad is a plumber, but yet when he isn't doing that, he actually teaches at the Knoxville Plumber Apprenticeship School. And so I knew that teaching and mentoring would be in my career path in some way, shape, or form. And my senior year, I thought I had it all figured out. Was that at 6 foot, about 240 pounds, I was not going to go play FBS ball, but I had pretty good grades, and I was fortunate enough to win the Lamar Alexander Scholarship. So I had the opportunity through that to be able to kind of pick which college I wanted to go to. But I can't share my coaching story without talking about a close friend of mine, Matthew Wright. Matthew Wright lived down the street from me, and I didn't have a younger brother, so Matthew was like my younger brother. And so we were always thick as thieves. We'd be playing ball, going to the movies, and he was 4 years younger than me. And so he was kind of like my first guy that I coached. We would go lift weights together. We would go play ball together. And I was really excited as I was graduating to kind of see Matthew, who was in the 8th grade at the time, to be able to go play high school ball. Well, unfortunately, our senior year, Matt was in a automobile accident, and he lost his life. And that was really tough on me. It was a really frustrating thing to go through when you're a senior about to graduate in 2 weeks, and it was really tough for me just being 18 years old. And I kind of had a moment of clarity where during the summer I had already realized that, okay, I'm not going to go play ball. I had gone ahead and sent out applications and got accepted to Belmont in Nashville, to David Lipscomb in Nashville, and I applied to UT Knoxville. The initial plan was I was going to major in either English, history, or political science. I was really interested in law, and so I heard that those were some of the three, I guess, majors that you needed to pursue if you wanted to go get a law degree. But after Matthew's passing, and after seeing what he had gone through in life and the connection that he and I had from, football, from sports, just the relationship we had, and even his relationship with Jesus. He had actually become a Christian 3 months before he passed, which is such a blessing for so many reasons. To see the difference that I can make in one person's life, that really had an impact on me that summer after I graduated from high school. So I had actually made plans to attend Belmont and to, go into, study English and then go on to law school. But I had a complete reversal. And I said, if I could help Matthew kind of learn about life and to help coach him up, why can't I do that with more young people? And so that's when I made the decision in about July of 2011 that I was going to completely switch gears. I was going to go now to Freed-Hardeman University in West Tennessee, a school that I said I would never go to. I said many times to my mom and dad, I'm not going to go to Freed-Hardeman. Ended up going to Freed, and I majored in English. I still did English, but then I also got a secondary education degree because I wanted to work with young people. I wanted to teach. I wanted to mentor. And so that's how I got to Freed-Hardeman, because I was very, very impressed with their education department. Because if there's two things that Freed-Hardeman gets right, it's preparing people to be teachers and preparing people to be preachers. And so I knew I was in the right place from that angle right there. So I had an amazing 4 years at Freed-Hardeman, and just kind of segueing into how I got into coaching at this point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, first, before you segue into that, I'm not going to hang that one loss of the 58-1 on you guys, because you were just freshmen when you lost to Morristown West in the semifinals there. So I really can't hang that one on you, even though it does go along with your 4-year record. But yeah, so tell us how you did then get into coaching, because obviously you graduated from Freed-Hardeman in 2011, and how did you get your first coaching job? And what did you see in that job that kind of molded some of your philosophies as you moved forward?
Absolutely. So when I was at Freed-Hardeman my junior year, I was doing practicum work as a teacher in the Chester County school system there in Henderson, and I missed football like crazy. I thought about it all the time, really wanted to be back a part of it, and I had the opportunity to be in Miss Angela Haltom's English classroom there in Chester County High School, and right across the hall was Coach Jeff Couples, who was the head football coach. And one day he and I were kind of getting to talk one day in the hallway, and he realized that I was from Maryville. And he said, "Josh, did you play ball?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he asked me how many state rings I had, and I told him that I had 3. And then he just pulls me aside and says, "Hey, well, if you would want to come out to football practice, we've got practice after school. If you want to just come out, see what we're about, and kind of help us out a little bit." And so I went out to practice that first day, fell in love with it. I knew that I had found my right fit. I knew that everything that I had decided upon about being a teacher and a coach was absolutely true. It really validated my decision. And so I continued to kind of assistant, volunteer coach for that time being. And then my senior year at Freed, I did my student teaching in the Chester County school system. And I was fortunate enough that in, April of 2011, right before I graduated, I got offered a job to be an English teacher and a football coach there at Chester County High School. And so that was the start. That was my very first job, was working for Michael Hodum, who is an incredible coach, incredible leader of young men. And I learned a lot from him. One of the most, memorable things Coach Hodum ever told me was we were getting ready to get the guys ready for our playoff run. And we were talking about scheme and all these different things. And I don't know how we got onto it, but he said, "Josh, one day I'm going to stand in front of the Lord, and he's not going to ask me how many championships I won or how many games I won, but he's going to ask me what I did for those kids." And that's kind of always stuck with me, that's why you got into coaching right there. Of course, coaches are competitive. I love to compete. That's one thing that George Quarles and the staff at Maryville kind of instilled in us, that it's fun to compete, it's fun to win, but there are much more important things at stake. So that's one of the biggest lessons I learned from Coach Hodem, and I'm so thankful for him. And that first year at Chester County was wonderful. I was kind of all over the place. I was working with the defensive line. I was even hanging out with the wide receivers during the offensive period.
Right.
And we had a great season, ended up going 10-3. And I want to say that was the best season in school history. We got to the quarterfinals, and we actually lost to a team called Covington High School in Tipton County. And I remember after the game, I was so frustrated. I said, I'm never coming back to Tipton County. Well, lo and behold, 6 months later, I got a job at Covington's rival, Brighton High School in Tipton County.
Right.
So that's how I made the move from Chester County down to Brighton, which is in Tipton County, and I was living in Memphis at the time. So I was with Chester County for 1 year, and then I ended up coaching at Brighton High School for the next 3 years. And that was just an incredible experience.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, obviously sounds like, you got to use kind of combine what you like there with English and coaching. So you said you spent 3 years with Brighton, okay, and then at that point, I know you mentioned from there you went to Midland University. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so,
yes, sir.
So what was kind of the mindset there as I guess your tenure as a high school teacher and coach was kind of winding down, and you thought, hey, I might want to go to graduate school, maybe, which is I think what you did, and kind of get into college coaching. Talk about your mindset and how you ended up at Midland.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was enjoying high school football, and I loved the team that we had at Brighton High School. I loved the coaches that I coached with, and I learned a lot of scheme from them. Will Wolf was our head coach, who's now at Hernando High School. Barrett Ernest, who played tight end at Alabama under Shula and DA'd for Saban, got to learn so much from him. And then, of course, Matt McConnell, who's the head coach at Waverly High School in West Tennessee. He was our DC at the time. Slade Calhoun was on our staff, who was previously the head coach at Haywood County High School. Just a lot of football knowledge on that team. So I was learning a ton of scheme, learning a lot about football, and at the same time having a great time with my students. I was teaching junior English at the time. But as my time at Brighton continued, I kind of other than coaching offensive line, I worked with the wide receivers and kind of coached tight ends a little bit. And I still worked with defensive line if the need be during a couple of those periods in those 3 years. But what I kind of got to was where I was one of the main recruiting coaches, where if a coach wanted to come talk to our guys, I was the coach on staff that they interacted with. So I got to make some really good connections with college coaches. Most Vol fans would remember Charles Mosley, 6'5", 315-pound defensive lineman that played for them, I want to say, the past 2 seasons. He's at Austin Peay right now, but he played at Brighton, and so got to meet Coach Saban when he came up to talk to Charles, and got just to meet Coach Jones, who was at UT, and got to just meet a lot of college coaches. So I started playing with this idea of, well, Josh, you need to get your master's if you're going to continue to be a high school coach. But could you maybe be a graduate assistant? So as I'm making these connections and meeting all these college coaches, I got in touch with a head coach in Nebraska at Midland University. His name was Josh Caraway, and he asked me if I wanted to come be a grad assistant for him. Well, I had never been to Nebraska a day in my life, like not at all.
Yeah.
I was kind of working my way up the ranks there at Brighton. I'd been there for 3 years, kind of had a say in how things went. But I had this opportunity, and it was very, very scary, and it was kind of like jumping into the unknown. But if I could give any listener advice right now, is that if you want to succeed, you got to take risk at some point. And so when I was offered the position at Midland, I kind of did my research on it. Midland's an NAIA school, so it's small college football. I was going to be a grad assistant, but they were going to allow me to be a position coach. So I would have had my own position, got to coach my guys, got to go on the road recruiting. But then, of course, with it being small college ball, I'd also be doing a lot of the film breakdown. I was the academic coordinator, had to do so many other things than just coach football. But what really made me decide to take the job was that I realized that I couldn't look back on my life and say that I had this opportunity to go work as a grad assistant and get my master's and didn't take it. And I really thought about it, and I said, the worst case scenario is that I just have a horrible time and I stick it out for 2 years, I get my master's, and then I can come back to Tennessee and continue to coach and do what I love to do. So I made the decision in January 2015 that I was going to go to Nebraska. So I packed up my life there in Memphis, and I moved about 12 hours away to right outside of Omaha, Nebraska, and I started coaching for the Midland Warriors, and I was working on my master's at the time, which was Master's of Education there at Midland University. So that's how I got up to Nebraska.
Well, tell me a little bit about what you coached at Nebraska, and then what do you coach now at Coastal Carolina?
Yes, sir. So when I got to Midland, I actually was on the defensive side of the ball, and I was working with the defensive line, which I absolutely loved. Worked for them all of 2015, and we were kind of having a rough season there at Midland. We ran into a lot of adversity, and we actually ended up going with a new head coach after the season. And so I was kind of really just thinking about my place, because with college football, if you get a new head coach, usually you get a new staff along with that. But fortunately, the athletic director, Dave Gillespie, who is a Nebraska guy, played for legendary coach Tom Osborne, coached with him as well. They ended up hiring a Nebraska guy named Jeff Jamrog, who was one of my biggest coaching mentors. Jeff played at Nebraska for Tom Osborne. He coached there twice, coached there with Solich, coached with Bo Pelini, and so just had a lot of football knowledge. And so Coach Jamrog comes in, and after a lot of meetings and a lot of, I guess, recruiting and film watching, he allows me to stay on the staff, and I am continuing to coach the defensive line. But Coach Jamrog was our special teams coordinator, and so I got to really just dig into special teams, which was the first time that I had really been able to do that, or had a guy so knowledgeable about it. Coach Jamrog had formerly helped the Huskers with their special teams in years past, so not only was I getting to work with the defensive line, and really we switched to a 3-4 scheme at Midland under our defensive coordinator, Jamie Bish, who is a fantastic coach. Learned a lot of football from him, but also kind of worked with some of the outside backers with that 3-4 so many times where that outside backer, usually into the boundary, comes up onto the defensive line. Right. So got some linebacker work in, got some D-line work, and then had an extensive amount with special teams, which proved to be very, very helpful. So I finished out that second year at Midland as a graduate assistant. We went 7-5, which was phenomenal. Coach did a great job with that. And that's actually how I kind of got out to Coastal Carolina, was that Coach Moglia, who was the head coach at Coastal, was on the football staff at Nebraska when my coach at Midland, Coach Jamrog, was also at Nebraska. Right. So it turns out that Coastal needed a special teams guy. And so they kind of got on the phone back and forth, so that they had a guy who would be interested. And I came out here in January of 2017. And I've been here at the beach ever since. So here at Coastal, one of my main responsibilities is to work with the special teams. But because of what I was doing at Midland with the defensive side of the ball, I sit in on the defensive meetings and sit in the linebacker position meetings as well. So those are, I guess, some of the bigger responsibilities that I have with Coastal football.
Yeah, so and just going through your coaching history a little bit there, I know you mentioned in high school, you mentioned a little bit offensive line, wide receivers, and then talked about defensive line, linebackers. So I would think that all that experience with these different positions kind of helps you in special teams, because you got guys coming from both sides of the ball, different responsibilities, and they're all, meshed into that special teams unit. And you have experience kind of with different guys at different positions. I would think that would help, right?
Oh, absolutely. What people forget is that special teams is a third of the game. And so many people want to think, well, let's talk about the offense and the defense. Mm-hmm. Well, what about special teams offense and defense? Yeah. And I've had lots of conversations with different coaches about, well, what is actually the most important phase of the game? The answer is that they're all equally important. You have to have sound schemes on all three of those units. But what's awesome about special teams is that you can see a guy's true athleticism, because a lot of times guys will want to look at special teams as, it's the punt team, or something that, I want to be a starter on the offense or the defense. But you get to see guys that want to be on the field. And that's one thing that I learned from Coach Jamrog when I was at Midland was a lot of times when guys are looking at scheme for special teams, they'll just think about guys off the team who think they would do a good job on the field, and they'll make a depth chart, and then during practice they'll get them lined up and said, all right, boom, we got our 11 guys, we're going to kick the ball, and then everybody's good, right? Well, what I learned from Coach was actually look at the player, see what the player is good at. Is he a fast guy? Is he a fast twitch guy? Is he going to be able to be a good gunner on the punt team to really get down there to make sure that the returner doesn't get out? Or does he have some size to him? Would he be really good as far as the shield goes on punt? Or is this a guy that when he's running down on kickoff that he'd be able to keep contained there over on, the boundary side? And so these are the questions you start thinking of. And, when you're looking at personnel, you might see a wide receiver. You're like, man, that guy fits the bill for what we need for this position. Or you can look at a defensive guy and say either this cornerback or even this linebacker kind of has the build. We know that he's going to get double teamed on the kickoff return team. So he's got to have a little bit of dog to him so that he can, bust through that double team and be able to go make the play right there. So it really helps as far as a coach's ability to look at talents to see what guys are good at, because, you guys know this just as well as I know it, that each player, each guy has different strengths. And so it's really, really cool to be in that special team seat to really put guys in the best position to excel when they're out there on the field. Even if it's for, if the punt team goes out there 4 times and know that, hey, the 4 times we're going to be out there, guys, we're going to be lights out and we're going to execute and we're going to make our team proud of what we're doing out there.
Now, I'm curious. I'm curious. Obviously, being at Coastal Carolina, you had to learn as much about them as you possibly could. So I'm curious as to the origin of the nickname Chanticleer. Now, I know a Chanticleer is a rooster, and
yes, sir.
It comes from the Canterbury Tales. So tell me, how did they settle on a rooster, and how does that fit your football team?
Okay, so how we settled on it was that when Coastal first got started, it was, I guess, a sister school of University of South Carolina. I believe at one time it was actually University of South Carolina Coastal Carolina Campus, or USC CCC. Okay. What a mouthful. So as a mascot, they wanted the campus to have a mascot that I guess kind of went hand in hand with the Gamecock, but to be a little bit different. And I want to say it was in the 1970s, might have been the 1960s, but our basketball coach at the time, who was actually an English professor, he came up with the idea because his class was actually studying the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer.
Right.
And they came along the Nun's Priest Tale, where it mentions this rooster out in the yard that's the most proud rooster of them all, and that it was very noble and that it was very majestic. And he said, Geoffrey Chaucer called it the Chanticleer. And so once Coastal became its own institution, its own university, that's when I guess the Gamecock kind of just went away, and the Chanticleer, and we even named the mascot Chauncey in I guess honor of Geoffrey Chaucer. So Chauncey is the mascot's name, and that's kind of how the Chanticleer kind of came to be here on Coastal. And it's a very unique mascot, but that's what we like about it here in Conway, and we love the color teal. So if you're ever on campus, you'll see teal everything. Our football field is actually a teal turf field, which is really cool. We call it the surf turf. Our track is actually teal colored as well. So we're all about the teal nation here in Conway.
Now I have to ask you this question too. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, so obviously when my parents still lived down there, we used to drive from Knoxville to Savannah a lot, and we'd go down through Columbia and then down on I-95. And when we'd get on 95, there was an exit that would take you to Conway, okay? And every time we would go stop at that exit to get something to eat or go to the restroom, there was always a police car sitting right at the exit with a dummy policeman in it. Is that still there?
Hey, it may totally be there. I have not been by there to see it. I will say that any time that I come out to Conway, coming from East Tennessee, I have not seen it.
Okay.
But just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it's out there, Ralph. Okay?
Well, obviously, it's not doing its job. Then, if people aren't noticing it, it's not deterring speeders.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, listen, I'm going to be on the lookout for it next time that I go through there. Okay.
You do that, and now I want to ask you kind of get a little bit on the personal side, I guess. But obviously, being a coach is a lonely a lonely job from the standpoint you spend a lot of hours doing what you're doing. I mean, I'm sure it's not an 8 to 5 job by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely.
So I know. I mean, do you have a significant other in your life? Are you planning any marriages in the future, or I mean, family wise? I mean, where are you at in that stage of your life?
Well, that's one of the things that I had to think about when I took the Midland job. At the time, I wasn't dating anybody. I was living on my own. And so it was a very easy decision to kind of, I guess, take that leap of faith and to go kind of, chase this one dream, this one opportunity that I had. When I was in Nebraska, I was dating somebody long distance, and it was going really, really well. But when I got the job out here at Coastal, that ended up kind of ending the relationship. And that's one thing I kind of advise to any young coach is that you have to make sure that you have to find a person that is not only good for you as far as a relationship, but got to understand the type of work that you do. Because Ralph, you said it's not a 9 to 5 job, especially during the season. You're up at the office every single day, flying out to Idaho this season, being on the other side of the country. And you got to find the right person to be able to be in a relationship with you for that. And actually, one of the best, I guess, advice I ever got was at the AFCA convention. I want to say it was 2 years ago in San Antonio. There was a GA panel, and I got to hear Dan Mullen speak on it. And Dan Mullen kind of, I don't want to say has the same story as mine, but he was an assistant at a smaller school. I want to say it was either Wagner or Wingate, and he had the opportunity to go be a GA at Syracuse, and he went kind of very much in the same way. He had that like I had the opportunity to come to Coastal, and he just took it. And one of the GAs in the audience asked him that same question about family and all those different things, and Dan Mullen said that he did not want to get married until he was kind of established in his coaching ranks. And so not that I'm taking it straight from that page, but I think that's some really wise advice right there, is that you kind of have to focus on one thing at the time, because it's very, very tough if you do have that other person, because you have to, definitely talk about, jobs and moving around and all those different aspects of it. Now, I am single, and so I really don't have to kind of have those conversations, but I do work with some guys on our staff who are my age, who do have wives, and that, have taken that step. So I don't want to say that it's one way or the other, like, oh, you can't be a young coach and be married, or that, you can be a coach, at the college level, you have to, be by yourself until you hit a certain point. So neither one of those is true. At the end of the day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say what's best for you in your certain, I guess, in your one place where you're at. But for me right now, I love focusing on Coastal football. Living at the beach is a wonderful thing, especially when you're an East Tennessee guy, and then when you've been in Nebraska the past 2 years. So I enjoy that aspect of it. And then I'm plugged in with a really wonderful church here that I spend a lot of time with when I'm not at football, especially since it's the off season now. Good. So kind of focusing on those things right now, and not so much on a relationship. But you never know what's around the corner, though, guys.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so kind of touching on a broader topic in your profession, we talked about coaching not being an 8 to 5 job. One thing we do know is that college football can be quite a lucrative profession. So as you kind of look around the coaching landscape right now, I know this time of year specifically, there's been a lot of major head coaching changes. Guys, jump from school to school, big buyouts you hear about. What's kind of your take on I guess the college football coaching culture, and just the idea that coaches can move around at any time? That obviously affects the assistant coaches and the staff, and just kind of where things are right now with your profession, really.
Right. Well, it's no, secret that at this level, there's a good amount of money that, gets pulled each way in that for salaries and for all of these, whether it be a bowl game or to the university, and that it gets caught up in the salaries a lot. But again, my main thing is, when I look at it, is that I didn't get into coaching for those things.
Sure.
And so when I'm looking at myself, that's really not a big play, the money issue. To be, I guess, very forward with you two, is that if it was about a money thing, I probably would have stayed in East Tennessee, where I had some high school offers that would have paid me pretty well starting this year. But I came out to Coastal because I believe in BAM, and I believe in Coach Moley and the staff and what we were doing here. But in relation to the college football landscape, there are just so many fans of football in it right now, and it means so much to so many people. You see what the Tennessee fan base was able to do with their coaching hire, and so there are so many people that are invested, into this. So I do feel that it's appropriate if you're bringing in all of that money. If it's that important to you, well, then you have to be able to get the right guy for it, And I always think back to what Alabama did in getting Coach Saban there. Really got that money to be able to bring him in and to look at what he's been able to do with his time there, because they said that it was important to them. It was important to them as a university to get the best guy. And so they were able to pay him that to be able to get him there. And you can see that the university has prospered as a part of that. Even when I was in high school coaching, I would have students with no ties to that university at all, but would tell me that they wanted to go there based off of their success in athletics and because of what the media made them out to be, And so you're thinking like, wow, this is a huge benefit then, is that if it's going to make your university better and if it's going to make all those, if it's going to draw that attention to you, then that's definitely something that you want to be able to afford to your coaches if it means that much to you. And I guess the old schoolyard saying is that put your money where your mouth is. It's like if that means that much to you, then be able to do that. I do think some people get a little bit too caught up in it. It's at the end of the day, this is a kid's sport. 11 guys on each side of the ball, and then the field is the exact same size. And so that's been the one neat thing for me as I've gone through my short coaching career, is that to be able to start at the high school level and then, to be able to be at Chester County, versus McNary, and then kind of, go to Midland where it's Midland versus Morningside. And then even this year where it's Coastal versus App State or Coastal versus Arkansas, that money aside, football is still football. You know what I mean, guys? Yeah. So that's kind of my reflection on it, is that, there's going to be more money involved with it. There's going to be a lot more attention drawn to it, but that shouldn't draw you away from the fact is that we are building young men. We are preparing men, especially here at Coastal, for life after football, to be outstanding members of our society and to be contributors to our society. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, let me kind of piggyback off what you just said and kind of extend Joseph's question just a little bit, or maybe change it a little bit. And based on what you said, it is a sport for the kids, and you hear that college football is for the students, and you always hear the term student athlete. Okay, and you guys are building a culture there, and the record of coaches who stayed at one school for 25 or 30 years is probably pretty small. Okay, and there's no guarantee, and I'm not trying to suggest anything here, but there's obviously no guarantee that the head coach at Coastal Carolina is going to stay there for an extended period of time. We don't know. So I guess I'll ask it this way then. A kid signs a scholarship and he's required to stay at that school. And if he wants to transfer, he's got to sit out a year. Okay. But a coach can up and leave anytime he wants. In fact, during this offseason, or even before the season was over, we've heard stories of Jimbo Fisher, his people being contacted by other schools, and current coaches being contacted by other schools. Well, when they leave, a new coach comes in with a new system and a new idea of what he thinks about the kids that are there. And those kids can't leave. And they may, all of us guys that maybe used to be starters or used to be on the way to being starters, maybe now they're cast on the curb because that new coach doesn't like what they do or doesn't like their skill set. So talk a little bit about your philosophy in the early years as you're starting to go through this. I mean, that doesn't seem really right for me. It seems like there should be a fair playing ground. In other words, if the coach wants to leave, he should have to sit out a year.
Right. Well, I'll start by saying this, is that no one system is perfect. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there are certain things that can be changed. And you made some great points, Ralph, about if a coach decides to leave, he can do that, but the student can't. The thing that I always come back to, and I learned this early in recruiting, is that when you're choosing a school to go to for your education, you're making a relationship with that staff, yes, but at the same time, it's like you're making a commitment to that school, to the really respecting the game of football, to where whether it be Coastal Carolina or whether it's at Tennessee and Knoxville, that this is the place where I want to be at. Right. And so when you make that commitment to a certain place, I feel that players wherever they might be, you need to see that out. You said that I want to be here, that I want to be able to honor what I said about that, and so I can see that side of the coin. For you made a commitment to be here. Let's see your scholarship out. Let's see your commitment to the school and to the football program. But the more and more that you see these coaching changes, that is kind of changing the conversation on it, because with coaches, it's they decide to get a new job, they get their buyout, and then next thing you know that they're gone in
Right.
the very next second. Which I feel that there are right ways and wrong ways to go about that. I've never met Coach Frost, who just got hired at Nebraska, but I think the world of his decision to actually continue to coach Central Florida through their bowl game. To be able to say that I had this new opportunity,
Right.
but kind of that same commitment that I just talked about with players to their schools. Well, you see that same commitment with Coach Frost to Central Florida. I made a commitment to you guys, to this team, and I'm going to see this through. And so I guess I don't really have a specific answer on how the problem can be fixed. I can see both sides of the equation right there. But if I can get onto one aspect of it, it's that commitment level. I said I wish coaches and players alike could be more committed to the to the agreements that they make, whether it's a commitment to coach a team for a specific year or a commitment to a school and to a football program.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both agree with a lot of what you said there. And real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Coastal Carolina baseball program. Maybe being a baseball guy. I mean, they are the defending College World Series champions. So if you had a chance to go out to some of their games, and what's the atmosphere like out there?
It is electric, Joseph. It is awesome. It is very, very cool. That was one of the first things that I checked out when I got here to Conway. And if you guys ever come to campus, I seriously feel free to come see us.
Okay.
Get to see the football facility and the baseball facility, but they're right next to each other. And so the football stadium is literally like maybe 50, 75, 100 feet away from the baseball stadium. And I've been to a couple of different baseball stadiums as far as Division I ball goes. And we've got as nice facilities here in Conway than anywhere in the nation. It is excellent. And it's just, again, like we're here at the beach. So you're sitting there down the first baseline, but you see palm trees, over in the horizon. And it's just a beautiful setting to have a baseball game. And, of course, winning the national championship in 2016 was just huge for this team. And that was one of the neat things, was that when I was in Omaha coaching at Midland, I actually went to the College World
That's right.
Series and I
In
watched
Omaha. That's right.
Yeah, and I watched Coastal Carolina play. Little did I know that here, and again, it was like the Covington Chester County thing all over again. Little did I know that I would be in Conway, South Carolina, not but 6 months later, moving here to coach for the football team, though. But that definitely got us into more of the talk nationally,
Right.
As far as athletics goes, because you win the national championship, people are talking about you. And then, of course, our basketball team has actually been to the NCAA tournament a couple times.
Right.
So we're really excited about this upcoming basketball season to see what we can do there. And just the general buzz on campus just continues to grow by the day. And just being here on campus every single day, you're always seeing, I guess, some type of construction equipment. And that's because new buildings are going up, or, they're doing phase 2 of the stadium. And so Coastal continues to grow. It continues to excel in both academics and athletics. It's just a pretty special place to be at, baseball and football included in all of that. So I'm just very blessed to be here. And Joseph, know that if you ever come out here, we'll come watch the Coastal Carolina baseball game. Okay, man?
You got it. So we want to finish up with this here. With all our guests, we want to finish with a little bit of a rapid fire segment here. So just quick answers, get to know you a little bit more as a person, not so much strictly tied to your profession. So we'll see how we go here. All right.
Okay, man. I think I'm ready.
All right. Give me one TV show that you'd like to make a cameo in.
Make a cameo in?
Yeah.
I would love to go on Shark Tank. Absolutely love to go on Shark Tank. Not that I would do anything, but I just want to be on the show.
Okay.
All right. Give me. What one celebrity, sports or otherwise, did you have a poster of in your room when you were young growing up?
I had a poster of Muhammad Ali knocking out Sonny Liston in my room until I graduated from high school. I mean, Cassius Clay, he is the greatest, so he was up in my room.
All right.
As a coach, do you prefer night games or day games?
Oh, I love the atmosphere of a night game. It
Okay.
takes a long time to wait, but I love the night games.
Yeah.
What one person in history would you like to have lunch with if you had an opportunity to?
Man, talking to a history guy here, so
Yeah.
many to pick from. I would love to sit down with Alexander the Great. The guy was so young and had literally taken over so much land. I just want to talk to a guy that I guess had conquered so much at such a young age.
All right. See, obviously you said you spent some time in Memphis. Favorite Grizzly of all time?
Favorite Grizzly? That's got to be Mark Gasol, man.
Okay.
Mark
All right.
Gasol. But
Okay.
hey, listen, Zach Randolph's up there, Tony Allen's up there,
All those
like
guys.
Mike Conley. That's really like the four right there. That's the
Okay.
legendary four right there.
Okay.
All right, keeping with the Memphis track, dry ribs or wet ribs?
Oh, got to go rendezvous with some dry ribs downtown. Got to.
All right.
And in that same vein, now as a coach, favorite pregame meal?
Favorite pregame meal is that I love just a chicken sandwich with a baked potato, just
Okay.
like grilled chicken breast. Got your baked potato, loaded, not, it doesn't matter, and then you got to have some Gatorade alongside it because it is a pregame meal after all.
That goes back to the Maryville days, right?
Yes, absolutely, Joe. Absolutely, man.
All right. And as a defensive guy, I mean, if you're coaching defense, would you rather have 3rd and 1 or 2nd and long?
Ooh, I want 3rd and 1. I want to see my guys step up.
All
I want
right.
to see my guys step up on 3rd down right there.
Okay.
All right. So we'll close out on this. Not so much necessarily rapid fire, and you can take a minute to think about this, but we like to finish with what we call a top 5. So today we're going with top 5 stadiums that you would like to coach at in the future. Now, it doesn't have to be your conference. It can be any conference, but just college football stadiums and atmospheres that you'd love to be on the sideline coaching in.
Okay, I think first and foremost, I would love to go to the Rose Bowl, man.
Rose
I don't
Bowl,
know
okay.
any football fan that, hasn't had dreams of somehow going to the Rose Bowl. Would love to go up to Notre Dame, actually.
Yes.
I'm not saying that because of y'all, but
No,
that is
hey.
a historic stadium.
I would have
love to
thought less of you if you didn't say it. So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, but I would love to go coach a game at Notre Dame for sure. Another big one that you got to think about while you're up there is playing in the Big House in Michigan. That
Right.
is the biggest stadium in all of college football. So that's kind of a historic one that you want to be able to go do that. This one, less people know about it, but the Sun Bowl down where UTEP plays at.
Yeah.
Like I heard that is such a unique place to play at. I've always been interested in maybe playing out there. And just as a homer, I've been there 1,000 times as a kid watching the Vols play, but I would love to coach a game in Neyland Stadium at some point.
Yeah.
So I guess those would be my top 5 right there if I had to pick.
Well,
What did you think of Idaho Stadium? That's a little weird, right?
The Kibbe Dome, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, they had it going on over there. It was very, very cool. What most people don't realize is that Idaho, or the University of Idaho, is right on the state line, where Pullman, Washington is not but like 15 minutes away where Washington State is. And so you've got 2 major FBS programs just right there.
Yeah.
But Idaho is kind of going down this next year to FCS. But the Kibbe Dome was really, really cool. It was unlike any other stadium that I've ever, dome that I've ever coached in. So it was a really cool experience to be able to go up there and coach in the Kibbe Dome this year.
Well, Josh, we want to thank you so much. You're a fine young man. I've known you since you and Joseph were growing up together, and I can't think of a better young man to carry the coaching mantle forward. I think you're going to do great things, and we respect you, and we think a lot of you, and we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day.
Hey, Ralph, appreciate it so much. And Joseph, guys, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah,
Really
enjoyed it. This was fun. Thank you. All right. Thanks again for joining us today. Special thanks again to Josh Caraway. You can, if you want to learn more about Josh as well as Coastal Carolina, follow him on Twitter at Coach Caraway or Instagram at Coach Caraway for more there. Also, thank you again to our sponsor, Bonus from Art, bonusfromart.com, and at Bonus from Art on Instagram to learn more about them. And looking ahead to next week, baseball winter meetings are in full swing now, so we'll be talking a little bit of MLB baseball coming up with a guest that will be recurring, as we've alluded to before. Maybe talk a little Nationals as well as more from the world of sports. So again, join me and Ralph next time. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes to the Press Box Podcast. You can also get it on Libsyn and Stitcher. and follow Fox Sports Knox on Twitter, as they'll be putting it up on SoundCloud as well. So that's how to find us, and be sure to listen again. Thank you.